Welcome to Tree of Life Spiritual Podcast, discussing the nature of God, self, enlightenment, and the spiritual path. My name is Theresa Lorraine. I am an independent scholar, a spiritual writer, a poet, and a person of faith. After experiencing a profound illumination at 12 years old, I've spent my life researching anthropology, psychology, theology, and mystic experiences, seeking to understand how this experience of higher love and interconnectedness is witnessed within all religions. Born into an atheist family and baptized Christian at 20 years old, I study meditation at my local Vedanta society, and I have never held back from learning about diverse religions or cultures. My faith is the root of my life. I see the world as my church, love as my religion, and life as my spiritual practice. The following podcast episodes can be found in the Book of the Tree of Life, released in February 2025 and available as a free download on Amazon, bn.com, Google Play, Kobo Books, Apple Books, and more. Please see the episode description for a link to the book. Feel free to download a free copy if you want to read along. Now, let us begin the first episode of this podcast with an introduction to the Tree of Life. The symbol of a sacred tree is found in all religious traditions. In Taoism, we have the tree of immortality that blooms every 3,000 years, whose fruit grants the boon of immortality. In Kabbalah, the Jewish mystic tradition, the tree of life is a map of the emanations of God. In Buddhism, the Bodhi tree is synonymous with the life of the Buddha. He was born in a grove of sala or teak trees. When he was 40 years old, he attained enlightenment after meditating for 40 days beneath a fig tree, called the Bodhi tree, which means loosely, tree of enlightenment. Then he went on to teach the Dharma for the benefit of all living beings. Krishna, the great avatar worshipped in India, taught of the cosmic tree, which finds its roots above and its branches below. In chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita, this inverted tree must be righted by cleaving through the dark roots of Maya. Then the tree will be seen right side up, and full comprehension of the world is gained. Also significant to Hindu practice, the tree of worlds, known as the Asvatha tree, appears in the Katha Upanishad, one of the oldest spiritual texts from India. Yggdrasil is an important tree in Norse mythology. It is the Norse tree of life, encompassing all 9 worlds that are part of the ancient Norse view of the cosmos. It is an ash tree in which all of the worlds, including the world of humans and the world of the gods, rest among the branches and roots. The ancient Mayans of Central America believed that a giant ceiba tree, Ya'aksh, stood at the center of the earth. This tree connects the terrestrial world and the spirit world with its long, thick vines, which hang from its canopy, providing a connection to heaven for their souls. In the famous vision of the Native American shaman Black Elk, who lived at the turn of the 20th century, he saw a great tree standing above and uniting all of the hoops of the world. This tree was seen in a vision when he was 9 years old. As a young boy, before he was named a shaman, Black Elk became sick for 2 weeks straight and went on a journey through the spirit realm where he learned of the future destruction of the Native American tribes that he would witness in his lifetime. In Black Elk's vision, this symbolic tree of life stood as a sentinel of hope, unity, and shelter for the tribes of the future. In Sufism, the mystic tradition of Islam, the symbol of the tree was famously used by the great Sufi master Ibn Arabi in his philosophy of the tree of being. And in the Quran, the tree of life is the only tree depicted in the garden. In the Christian book of Revelations, a sacred tree is described as crossing the 2 sides of the river Jordan, which has become symbolic of the manifestation of heaven on earth. Unfortunately, heaven is not going to be handed to us by any magical intervention. We will need to build paradise 1 brick at a time. So you may think of our comprehension of the tree of life as a cornerstone to that someday paradise, that we might continue to build a foundation for world peace by seeking unity in faith. Section 1. The symbol of the tree of life. As described above, we can see that the symbol of a sacred tree, termed the tree of life for the sake of this book, is present throughout the great spiritual teachings and mystic visions of different cultures. And this is very significant. It should not be overlooked as mere coincidence. Some people reading this book might be familiar with the name Carl Jung. Carl Jung was a student of Freud and one of the founding fathers of modern-day psychology. He was a hidden Buddhist who adopted many of the theories in Buddhism about mind, self, and ego into modern-day psychology. He believed in the collective unconscious of mankind, a deep region of our psyche that is shared by all people, which we inherit from our ancestors. He proposed that archetypal symbols exist within our collective unconscious on a hidden unconscious level of thought that are universal across cultures. These archetypes can be found in folklore, storytelling, artwork, dream interpretation, and cultural norms. The wise woman or the witch, the child, and the shadow, among others, are all examples of what Carl Jung called universal archetypes. This humble author would like to propose that, due to the universal occurrence of a sacred tree in religious symbolism, that the tree of life is, in fact, another unconscious archetypal symbol overlooked by Carl Jung. Why is this important? It means that in the depths of our shared unconscious mind as a species, we are aware of ourselves as spiritual beings. Just as our collective unconscious harbors symbols of the child, the wise woman, and the shadow, so our collective unconscious harbors the symbol of the tree of life, hinting at our innate knowledge of our spiritual nature. This means that spirituality cannot be separated from the human experience. It cannot be dismissed as delusion, mysticism, or magical thinking. Just as we cannot separate ourselves from these universal archetypes, they operate on an unconscious, hidden level beyond our cognition and control, so we cannot separate ourselves from the tree of life. Whether we wish to be aware of it or not, deep down in the heart of our being, there appears to be an aspect of ourselves we have lost, that we are trying to remember on an ancestral level, an aspect of ourselves that, without it, makes us feel not yet whole, somehow only existing in part. Our spiritual sense of ourselves is a universal human trait that is woven throughout our psyche and our biology, and it manifests as mankind's yearning for and seeking after the divine. If we are to take the implications of the archetypal tree of life seriously, then it means that mankind's spiritual nature cannot be denied. Therefore, the tree of life has deep psychological significance, both for our sense of cohesive personal identity and our universal identity as a species. Indeed, it would seem that every great spiritual tradition has manifested the symbol of the sacred tree in one way or another, indicating our shared experience as spiritual beings. Section 2: Divine Revelation and the Tree of Life. I began this book as an independent research project after a personal encounter I had with the Tree of Life and Rapid Resolution, which is a mode of therapy that utilizes symbols to communicate with the unconscious mind, or the lizard brain. Here is a brief description of RRT from Wikipedia. RRT does not only target the conscious thinking brain, but also addresses the emotional brain and limbic system, changing how the unconscious mind processes information so that improvements are natural and automatic. The unconscious mind does not respond immediately to conscious direction, but is known to relate and respond quickly to symbols, metaphors, stories, and imagery. So RRT looks to change the neural pathway through specialized tools and techniques like guided meditation, role play, and other types of communication. By working with both the conscious thinking mind and addressing the deeper part of the unconscious mind, RRT can eliminate the emotional charge associated with the particular traumatic memory or issue. For treating one issue, the typical RRT process is usually completed within 1 to 3 online or in-person meetings. My reason for entering into a session of rapid resolution was to resolve the trauma of losing my father to a sudden heart attack. I had tried talk therapy or grief therapy in the past, but found them ineffective. RRT allowed me to have a profound experience of reconnecting with my father while resolving the loss on an experiential, permanent level. Within this experience at 25 years old, I encountered the symbol of the sacred tree. The tree emerged naturally from within my mind. It was not planted or prompted in any way, and accompanied a profound spiritual experience. My encounter with the archetypal symbol of the tree of life, which spurred this research project, went a little something like this. During my first session of rapid resolution therapy, my therapist, we'll call her Jen, asked me to imagine a place that brings me peace and makes me feel at home. I thought of the forests up in Washington, in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, where I lived in my childhood, before I moved to Los Angeles when I was 10 years old. I miss the wild ruggedness of those forests deep in my heart, and on some days I can feel my whole body crave the peace of the forest. We agreed that the forest would be my place of sanctuary as we explored my experience of traumatic loss together. After discussing some aspects of my life and the events of the past few years, Jen led me through a guided meditation session. I was sitting in a chair with my feet both on the ground. We faced each other. She asked me, "Do you believe that we are all connected?" I said, "Yes." She took my hand and led me down into a folded position. I bowed my head low, low until it was almost between my knees, and I wrapped my arms around myself to calm my nervous system. She released my hand, then she held her hands over the base of my skull. I breathed deeply, settling into the moment. Go to your forest where you feel safe. I want you to picture the forest and relax, be at peace. I breathed deeply and slowly, and in my mind, I went to sit at the base of a peaceful pine tree deep in the forest. I was somewhere in Washington state. Dry pine needles cushioned me. I could smell the scent of warm summer, sweet blackberry perfume in the air, the scent of pine trees and moist earth. Yellow flowers sprinkled my feet. I leaned back against the trunk of the tree and relaxed. I breathed deeply, steadily. All was silence. As I relaxed, I slowly began to sink backwards. I sank into the tree, into the ground, until I was comfortably wrapped in the roots of the tree. I felt so safe. The earth was so quiet. In the cool, moist darkness of the earth, nothing could reach me, and I could sleep and restore my soul. I felt a wellspring of peace expand inside of me, pulling me down, down into the roots of the tree. I kept sinking deeper and deeper into silence, into peace. Then, suddenly, I was standing in a chamber that resided inside the heart of the tree, deep underground at the center of the roots. Inside this chamber, I saw a sarcophagus of white stone. It lay horizontally on its side. A beam of sunlight shone down through the center of the tree, illuminating it. The carving of an ancient king lay on top of the sarcophagus, with a stone sword clutched in his hands and a stone crown upon his head. Suddenly, my dad's presence became known. I can describe it no other way. I knew this was my dad's grave. He was not visible, yet I felt him right there next to me in the roots of the tree. In an instant, the tree exploded around me, growing and growing, shooting thousands of feet into the air. It became the largest tree you could fathom, stretching up and up into the heavens, into infinity, into eternity. I felt my dad's spirit join with my own. Our spirits became one, and we took off and flew up through the center of the tree. Up and up. Then the indescribable unity of the presence of God enveloped us. This immense spirit emanating from within embraced us on all sides, and God became one with us. As one soul, we flew up through the tree, becoming one with the tree itself. And I knew this. My dad, myself, God, and the tree were all one, and the tree was growing. My dad was not dead. No one was dead. No one ever dies. We were all alive, and we were all together, and we were all growing into a massive tree, and the tree was God, and the tree was infinite, eternal, and contained all things. God showed me the tree of life. He showed me the truth of life. There is no death, only life, only a million lives, all growing into one tree, one God. God is the tree of life, and the tree contains all things. I came out of the vision with tears streaming from my eyes, crying and laughing as grief poured out of my heart. My brain was electric. A great love and presence embraced me. I cried with Jen and hugged her, and in the grief was joy because I knew my dad's presence again. Somehow I had reconnected with him internally, and I could still feel him with me inside of my heart. My anxiety was gone, and I felt a renewed sense of peace. I knew now, with a knowing beyond knowing, that our spirits were not separate, but one. that we were all one, that my father was not lost, but part of me, part of God, and we were all growing as one eternal tree of life. This beautiful experience of the tree of life, which came upon me unprompted in RRT meditation, is not unique to me. In fact, this same symbol of a tree has been witnessed and experienced by many saints, shamans, avatars, teachers, and mystics throughout spiritual traditions. The universality of it and the comprehension of the divine that comes from it are all harmoniously in sync. And so I believe this holy symbol exists at the root of true religion, and it's not a symbol we've created out of thin air. I believe it was given to us like breadcrumbs through the dark forest of world religions, that we might discern where divine revelation has taken place. Humbly, I do not believe God can be known or fathomed simply by observing nature and the cosmos. But this Lord of love chooses to reveal his nature through special revelation, which is a subjective internal experience. Despite this experience being individual and subjective, certain universal truths arise from it, and accounts of the experience itself can be traced and followed through many different religious traditions. This is where I must be bold and make a claim. I do not believe revelation of this nature is reserved only for the saints, or special chosen or deified people. I believe this sort of revelation can be experienced by even the most mundane office worker, living life in a cubicle, experiencing the average daily struggles of society. And in fact, I believe it's an experience we're all meant to have, if we are sufficiently open to it. I do believe it is a gift bestowed by grace, and not an experience to be merited or fabricated by individual means. So, this transcendent experience, what some might call revelation due to its being a hard event containing direct knowledge of the divine, spurred me to research the symbol of the tree of life, seeking a place it could fit not just within a religious context, but within modern-day psychology as well. And the culmination of that research has led to the writing of this book, which I have fashioned into a podcast for your listening enjoyment. Section 3. Reimagining World Religions Through the Tree of Life. Through this universal symbol, perhaps we can reimagine the relationship between the different world religions. Instead of looking at religion through a historical or anthropological lens, which sees religion as a function of culture and society, closely intertwined with politics, our economy, subsistence patterns, and daily life, perhaps we can imagine religion first and foremost as a vessel for divine revelation, which, as a secondary function, is adapted to culture and society. Over time, these special revelations become the cornerstone of their respective cultural identities, expanding symbolically into artwork, storytelling, fables, national and personal identity, and accompanying us communally through marriage, childbirth, and death, while our secondary lay understanding is shaped by periods of war and peace. But at the heart of every religion, from Taoism to Catholicism to Buddhism, there exists a transcendent experience of the divine, a revelation of divine nature, which leads to hard knowledge about mankind's spiritual purpose and our place in this universe. The vast majority of these revelations are accompanied by the unconscious symbol of the tree of life. This book attempts to illuminate such revelations by exploring, among other things, the symbol of the tree of life. Now, divine revelation is a provocative word, and it is suitably vague, so let us attempt to define it for the sake of our discussion. This sacred experience has been called many things by many cultures: liberation or moksha, enlightenment, union with God, salvation, awakening, illumination, self-realization, entering the garden of truth, attaining the Tao, Olodumare, etc. And yet, when comparing these transcendent experiences side by side, undeniable similarities begin to emerge. There is always a sense of light and a presence far greater than we can comprehend, a transformation of body-spirit awareness, resurrection, a new understanding of the unity of life, and a higher sense of unconditional love, peace, and divine purpose. This is not the same experience of bliss experienced by some people in meditation, nor is it the invulnerability or reckless excitement of bipolar mania, nor is it any sort of emotional detachment from reality. It is not a mood state, nor is it a flurry of inspiration, nor a great idea. This revelatory experience always leads to permanent knowledge of the divine that is concrete, writable even if ultimately transcendent, leading to a renewal of doctrine that is in sync with established tradition. What this means is that every person who experiences this kind of revelation will witness to, validate, and verify the ones who have experienced it before them. This means the experience itself, the knowledge contained within this experience, and the unconscious symbol connected to this experience, the sacred tree, are all replicable across cultures, across times, across generations. And the wisdom arising from this knowledge is more or less the same, within the constraints of culture, language, and custom of a given time. The knowledge and sensations imparted by the experience itself are likely identical. We cannot know without a doubt, as it is subjective. However, the verbal expression of that experience varies due to our own unique capacities to express it, and due to the comprehension of the audience it is intended for. We are social creatures, after all. Why discuss a transcendent experience of the divine, except to attempt to impart it to others? And so two aspects of divine revelation make it appear to differ on the surface: the capability of the person who experienced it to communicate it, and the comprehension of the audience who receives it to understand it. However, as mentioned above, these experiences have many significant traits in common. In order to demonstrate the universal nature of divine revelation and the harmonious knowledge that comes from it, including knowledge of salvation, self, the spiritual path, the nature of love and pure-heartedness, emptiness and detachment, and God both great and good, brings me to the grand thesis of this book. Through commentary on various religious writings, I will draw a string of truth through the following intersecting points of different spiritual practices. Section 4, 3 points of intersection. The nature of God, Father, Mother, One, Lord, Allah, Great Spirit, Self or Consciousness, etc. Divine revelation reveals to us a God of many names: Father, Mother, Self, Tao, King, Lord, Allah, Yahweh, Great Spirit, Consciousness, I Am, Nirvana, and more, countless more. But this is not to say God is polytheistic, or that just any idea of God is correct. Mere observation of nature, pure whimsy, or untethered imagination does not lend itself to comprehension of the divine. Through special revelation within major world religions, we can gain the following understanding of God's nature: all of creation exists inside of the divine as one. Likewise, the divine is one with his creation. We dwell inside of the divine, and the divine dwells inside of us. And on the most authentic, deepest level of our being, we are that. We can call this comprehension non-dualism. Our second point of intersection is the experience of enlightenment, salvation, liberation, illumination, self-realization, attaining the Tao, etc. Enlightenment, liberation, salvation, etc. is receiving divine revelation through an experience of unification with God, higher consciousness, or becoming one in the tree of life. Only in this unitive state can we know God's presence in the world and comprehend divine consciousness. This experience and revelation lends itself to the writing and/or renewal of doctrine, and ultimately defines the spiritual path of mankind. The spiritual path itself is very similar across religions, renouncing personal desire or self-will, and purifying the heart. Our third point of intersection is, you guessed it, the tree of life. Sacred tree, cosmic tree, tree of unity, tree of being, tree of immortality, etc. As already discussed, the archetypal symbol of the tree of life is present in all world religions. We find it in storytelling, artwork, mystic visions, and poetry. The tree of unity is a powerful symbol used for teaching the nature of the divine. It has been used to describe the interconnectedness of God's body within the cosmos, also called the macrocosm by some schools of thought. Likewise, it has also been used to symbolize God's presence within our own heart, which we can call the microcosm. All religions become united as one beneath the canopy of this universal tree. Let us learn from each other and grow. Section 5. Building a framework for universal faith. Considering all of the points laid out above, this humble author must make another bold claim. Perhaps a unified understanding of faith is possible, and perhaps it doesn't entirely lie in our traditional past. Perhaps it is a faith we are building toward now as we overcome the barriers of language, race, origin, and creed. While researching and writing this book, I imagined all of the world religions uniting like roots to the trunk of a great flourishing tree, the canopy of which appears to shelter the entire world and all that it contains. And I'd like to propose this symbol as a framework for that someday future faith, where we all understand ourselves as one in the tree of life. Following the symbol of the sacred tree through the tapestry of world religions, we can begin to see that, in a beautiful and transcendent way, it's only ever been one great teaching, one great journey of mankind discovering the truth of God within. Instead of seeing each religion as separate, let us try to see each religion as a chapter in the book of the Tree of Life, written by the same author, whose creativity knows no bounds. For during the research that led to the writing of this book, I discovered that what felt incomplete in one religion was made whole by the inclusion of another. For instance, the lack of description of the Holy Spirit in Judeo-Christian tradition is made whole by the concept of the Atman in Advaita Vedanta. The Buddhist concept of detachment is made clearer by the teaching of Ayin, or nothingness, in Kabbalah. The enlightenment of Sri Ramakrishna mirrors that of St. Augustine of Hippo, and we can see it embodied as well in the great Native American shaman Black Elk. And I intend to discuss all of these figures and more in this book. In conclusion, it is through this unity that we can perceive higher truth about the nature of life and our human destiny. We need to remember the spiritual essence of who we are. We need to grasp hold of the great inheritance that lies at the heart of every being, our unity and stewardship of all life. This author's hope is to establish a framework for the future, that more scholars, students, and brilliant artists will come together in generations to come to build the universal truth of the Tree of Life. This cosmic tree becomes a symbol for the harmony and unity that is inherent within all spiritual practice, uniting us from the depths of our psyche to the expanse of the universe itself. Unity in diversity. On the most basic and profound level of existence, we are all one in the Tree of Life. Thank you for listening to the Book of the Tree of Life by Theresa Lorraine, an exploration of spirituality around the world. I post a new episode every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. In the coming podcast episodes, we will explore the major aspects of different routes to the Tree of Life, from Christianity to Kabbalah, Sufism, Vedanta, Taoism, Buddhism, and even atheism. Please subscribe for upcoming content. In the next episode, we will explore the mystic practice of Kabbalah,